Welcome back to our channel. Today we will explore some of history's spookiest and most enigmatic crimes. The haunting and unsolved mystery of the Morningside murders is the terrifying story we're sharing with you today. It sent shockwaves through the neighborhood. The gruesome details surrounding these enigmatic crimes, which have puzzled investigators for years, will be covered in this video. So let's get right into the terrifying case of the Morningside murders without any further delay. In the quiet suburban community of Morningside, our story opens. It was once a tranquil haven, but it became the scene of a string of horrifying murders that made the locals terrified to death. A series of brutal murders that took place between 2019 and 2021 all had unsettling similarities that suggested they were the work of a serial killer. But who was responsible for these heinous crimes, and what inspired them to carry them out in such a horrific manner? Morningside was a tight-knit neighborhood where people knew one another and felt safe in their beautiful surroundings. The first murder, however, destroyed this feeling of security. The community's beloved member had been brutally murdered in their own home. When the residents woke up, everyone in the neighborhood was on edge as a result of the shock and horror that spread through the area. It became clear during the course of the investigation that a sadistic killer had turned the sleepy neighborhood into his hunting ground. The quiet streets that were once alive with children laughing and playing now held a terrible darkness. The people began to lock their doors out of fear and began to look out their windows with a mixture of suspicion and dread. The Morningside murders were known for their heinousness. The victims, who appeared to have no connection to one another, were found dead in their own homes after having their lives brutally taken. No mercy was shown as the assailant repeatedly stabbed the victims with a ferocity that suggested a strong sense of rage. The Morningside community experienced chills down their spines at the mere thought of such violence taking place in their formerly safe haven. An unsettling detail that was found at each crime scene was a mysterious symbol that was etched into the walls using the victim's own blood. A chilling series of events was made even more mysterious by this unsettling signature. Investigators carefully examined the symbol in the hopes that it would reveal information about the killer's identity or motivations. As detectives dug deeper into the chilling case of the Morningside murders, they came across a number of horrifying crime scenes that baffled and horrified them. Each murder showed an unfathomable degree of brutality, leaving a trail of terror and unanswered questions. The victims, who appeared to have no connection to one another, were discovered dead in their own homes, their lives brutally taken. The murderer had no mercy as they repeatedly stabbed their helpless victims with a knife. Since the crimes were so brutal and violently committed, it was obvious that a sadistic person was responsible for them. The presence of a mysterious symbol imprinted onto the walls using the victim's own blood was a disturbing pattern that was evident at the crime scenes. The case became even more mysterious and horrifying thanks to this macabre signature. Each symbol was painstakingly recorded by the investigators in an effort to understand its significance and perhaps find a hint that could help them identify the murderer. The complex and eerie symbol may have held the secret to understanding the murderer's motivation and mindset. It was consistent at each crime scene, indicating that the murderer chose to intentionally leave this ominous trail of destruction. However, despite in-depth research and expert consultation, the symbol's true significance remained elusive. Was it a personal mark, distorted message, or perhaps it was an intentional attempt to deceive investigators? It was frustratingly difficult to get the answers. The symbol's existence also brought up unsettling questions about the degree of planning and familiarity the killer had with the victims. How did the murderer get inside their houses? Was it a member of the neighborhood or a lone wolf stalking its prey in the night? The residents of Morningside were already filled with a general sense of fear and mistrust, but the uncertainty surrounding these questions only made things worse. Investigators found other puzzling particulars at the crime scenes in addition to the terrifying symbol. The atmosphere of mystery was enhanced by the carefully placed, seemingly random objects. While some believed that these objects had a symbolic meaning, others questioned whether they had been placed there to confuse and divert the investigation. Investigators assumed the murderer had some level of expertise or experience in avoiding capture because of the meticulous nature of the crimes. The absence of any witnesses and the lack of recognizable patterns in the victim's daily routines made it difficult to find the murderer. Investigators were overcome by the scope of the task at hand, as each crime scene offered a horrifying window into the mind of a methodical and elusive killer. Investigators' dreams and the spines of those who lived in fear were haunted by the Morningside murders' gruesome crime scenes and the eerie presence of the mysterious symbol. Law enforcement agencies started a thorough investigation into the chilling case as soon as the first murder happened in the quiet neighborhood of Morningside. Detectives and forensic experts scrutinized every piece of evidence, conducted countless interviews, and pursued numerous leads in their quest to find the perpetrator and bring him or her to justice. But despite their unwavering commitment, the investigation appeared to be beset by a string of dead ends. As word of the Morningside murders spread, fear and paranoia engulfed the neighborhood. Investigators had to sift through a vast sea of tips and information after reports of suspicious people flooded the police hotline. Each lead had to be carefully examined, but they consistently turned out to be dead ends. With every promising lead that turned out to be false, the investigators became more and more frustrated. False suspects started to surface, which added to the confusion and delay. Innocent people were the targets of intense scrutiny, having their lives completely upended by being held in the spotlight of suspicion. The difficult task of removing these false leads fell to the investigators, who frequently had few resources and were under increasing pressure from the public and the media. The investigation was made more difficult by the lack of a clear motive or apparent connection between the victims. Detectives were unable to establish a pattern or pin down a potential motive because the murderer appeared to act randomly. It was even harder to anticipate the killer's next move or comprehend their motives because there was no obvious pattern. The neighborhood eagerly assisted the investigation because it was looking for answers and a solution. Nevertheless, despite their best efforts, the information frequently produced more confusion than clarity. The truth turned out to be a flimsy and evasive concept due to the conflicting witness accounts and fuzzy memories. The investigators were forced to sort through a tangle of contradictory testimony while attempting to distinguish truth from fiction. Forensic analysis and technological advancements were crucial to the investigation. In an effort to link the crimes and possibly identify the killer, DNA evidence, fingerprints, and other forensic methods were used. But as the investigation went on, even the most sophisticated forensic techniques produced only sporadic findings, dashed hopes for both the community and the investigators. The weight of the unsolved murders weighed heavily on the detectives as the case grew colder and the leads dried up. The community's sense of helplessness and fear was heightened by the ominous question of whether the murderer would retaliate. The Morningside murders investigation is still ongoing, but the likelihood of a successful conclusion is dwindling as time goes on. Researchers in the community are struggling with a profound sense of frustration and despair due to the lack of significant advancements and the ever-growing list of unanswered questions. Although the road ahead appears to be long and uncertain, the search for justice continues. Residents still have nightmares about the Morningside murders, and the case continues to elude both professionals and amateur sleuths. The killer's identity hasn't been revealed despite a lot of theories and conjectures. Will there ever be an answer to this terrifying mystery, or will it remain unsolved forever, instilling fear and raising more questions than it answers? Thank you for joining us on this spine-chilling journey into the enigma that is the Morningside murders. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to our channel if you enjoyed this video, if you want to see more spine-tingling tales like this one. Also, never forget that there are many mysteries in the world that still need to be solved. Keep your curiosity alive and your safety until next time.